The ceramic mug exploded on the tile. Leo flinched under the table. The man's fingers stayed locked around the woman's wrist. "Let go of her," the barrister said, voice shaking. The man sneered. "She owes me a conversation." She said no. A deeper voice cut in. Marco Reyes moved between them without hesitation, one hand out, palm low and steady. "Let her go." The woman's eyes flicked to Marco, calm, clear, not begging. The detail landed first. The man tightened his grip. "Back off, hero." Leo's sneaker scraped the floor. The sound snapped something in Marco. He shifted his weight. Fast. The man's wrist was off the table in a second, his grip broken with a sharp twist Marco hadn't used since before diapers and bedtime stories. The man yelped and swung his other hand. It clipped a tray. Cups went crashing. Hot coffee splashed the floor. "Whoa," the barrister yelled. "Stop," the woman said, voice low enough to pull attention. "Just stop." The man lunged again. Marco stepped forward instead of back. His shoulder blocked the swing. He guided the man down, not a full hit, just enough to put him on a knee. Someone filmed. The blink of a phone camera went up like a flare. "Are you done?" Marco asked, eyes level. The man hissed, pulled free, and staggered up. "This isn't over," he snapped at the woman. He pointed at Marco. "You don't know who you're messing with." He shouldered past and shoved the door open so hard the bell ripped out a shriek. Silence held for 2 seconds. 3. "You okay?" Marco asked the woman. She blinked once, twice. "I am now." "Dad," Leo whispered from under the table. "It's okay, buddy, out you come." Marco crouched and helped Leo climb out. A dinosaur sticker clung to Leo's hoodie elbow. His cheeks were blotchy. He wrapped both arms around Marco's leg and didn't let go. The woman's gaze dropped to Leo. It softened and set at the same time. "Thank you," she said, and smiled once, quick. "Both of you." The barrister leaned over the counter. "Do you want us to call?" "It's handled," the woman said lightly, but her hand trembled when she reached for her discarded bag. She turned to leave. For a second, her sleeve slid back. The watch on her wrist wasn't expensive. It was expensive in a language most people didn't speak. She caught his glance and tugged her sleeve down. Marco didn't say anything. Her eyes narrowed like she'd noticed that he noticed. "May I pay for your coffee?" she asked him. "We're good," he said. He wasn't, but Leo was watching. She hesitated, then reached into her bag. A napkin. A pen. She wrote a number. She didn't put a name. She pressed the napkin into his palm. "In case that man bothers you about me," she said, "or in case you need something." "Like what?" "Anything," she said simply. She walked out with an even stride. Outside, a black SUV idled at the curb, not a rideshare. The driver in a suit stepped out and opened the door. She got in without looking back. Leo stared up. "Dad, was she a princess?" Marco glanced at the napkin. He folded it once. "Finish your cocoa," he said. "We're going to be late." They left sticky footprints in the coffee. Scene shifted fast because life didn't slow for drama. At the garage, his boss was already mad. "You're 20 minutes late, Reyes." "Had a situation at the cafe," Marco said, pushing Leo's backpack into his office. "Leo, homework at the desk, all right?" Leo nodded, serious as a jury. He pulled his math worksheet out and lined his pencil up like a tiny soldier. "Your situation better fix the Tahoe in Bay 2, the boss grunted. "Customers already complaining on Yelp." Marco slid under the Tahoe. He worked. He always worked. His hands steadied when they held a wrench. Midday, a text from his ex pinged. "Nina, the hearing's tomorrow. Don't be late. Don't bring him." "Marco, he stays with me tonight. I'll drop him at school before court." "Nina, not if the judge hears about your little fight." Marco closed his eyes. He could taste the coffee shop all over again. How did she know? He checked. The video had 3,000 views. 550. Someone had slapped a caption on it. "Mechanic takes down pap creep. Hero dad or hothead." He put his phone back face down. He took a breath and went back to work. Leo wrote numbers and chewed the eraser until it bent. At 6, the shop closed. The boss tossed Marco a stack of new car seat safety manuals. "State inspection changed. Read these." "Also, a woman stopped by earlier, asked if you worked here. Fancy shoes. I told her yes. She didn't come in." Marco didn't blink. "What she want?" "Said to give you this." He held up an envelope, thick paper, no return address. Marco slid it open in the tiny office with the fridge that buzzed too loud. Inside, a black card with embossed silver letters, Vale, an address, a time tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Security reception. Please ask for Miss Vale. He flipped the card, a handwritten line. Thanks for today. He thought of the watch, the SUV. He thought of the napkin on his kitchen counter next to the bills. He thought of the hearing at 10. Dad, Leo asked, chin on the office doorframe. What's Vale? A building, Marco said. Where they make apps or something? Apps like games? Maybe. Can I come? Not this time. Leo's face fell. He kicked at the doorframe and then caught himself. Sorry, he said quickly. It's okay, Marco said, already trying to solve the puzzle. He gave up on sleep before he even got home. At 8:20 the next morning, the Vale Tower loomed like a glass blade. Security was a different planet. Clear bags, metal detectors, smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Mr. Reyes? The guard asked. Marco nodded. He had shaved. He had combed Leo's cowlick, half habit, before he remembered Leo was at Mrs. Green's for the hour. Right this way. The elevator climbed without sensation. The doors opened into a space that made silence a design choice. It was all light-colored wood and calm. She stood by the windows with the city under her feet. No coffee cup, no trembling hand, gray suit, white shirt, hair pulled back, efficient. That was the only word. Sloane Vale, the assistant said quietly. Mr. Reyes. So that, Marco swallowed the reflex to step back. Sloane Vale crossed the room with her hand extended. No hesitation. Thank you for yesterday. Anyone would have done it. Not true, she said. And not true especially with a child in the room. Leo was behind me, Marco said. He knows to stay behind me. Sloane's mouth curved like she wanted to smile and decided not to. You did that with one hand, she said. The other was pointing him where to go, I noticed. He didn't know what to do with that. About the man, Trent Pike, she said. He runs a blog that hemorrhages truth in exchange for clicks. He's dedicated the last year to stalking me in the name of journalism. Why? Because I told him to stop calling my employees at home. She moved to the table and picked up a tablet. She didn't hand it to him. She just read. He sells a story. Woman with money, bad woman with money who says no. Worse, if I had raised my voice, he would have filmed it for sport. She looked back up. You didn't know any of that. You still stepped in. It was loud, Marco said. My kid was scared. I didn't think about anything else. I wanted to thank you, she paused, and I wanted to ask you a favor. There was the catch. There was always a catch. She gestured to the chair. Sit, please. He did, but on the edge. I need a driver, she said. Someone who isn't on my company's security payroll. Someone who knows the city. Someone who thinks before he reacts, but when he reacts, doesn't escalate. That was very clear yesterday. I fix cars, he said. You also used to wear a uniform, she said, not unkindly. Right shoulder injury, left elbow scar, that isn't a mechanic's row of marks. He stilled. I don't need the details, she said quickly. I only need to know if you can drive and if you can keep your child safe while you do it. Leo comes first, he said. Good, she said. I've found a lot of people who say the right words. I prefer the ones who live them. The job is 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., give or take with some evening events. Benefits, health care, a lawyer on retainer if you need one. He exhaled once. I have a custody hearing today. I know, she said, and then she waited for the anger that sentence caused. He stood. She didn't flinch. How do you know that? He asked, voice tight. She tapped the tablet. Because the video put your full name into 1,000 mouths. Because Trent is planning a post this afternoon about Angry Dad vs. Free Press. And because your ex's lawyer called the court clerk to ask for a continuance with the phrase violent altercation in the email subject line. He sat back down. You read my email? No, she said. I read him. That landed differently. What do you want from me? He asked. Take the job, she said simply. Let me pay you what you're worth. Let me put our legal team behind you for court, and then just drive. Her eyes flicked, just once, not an accident, to his hands. And don't let Trent bait you again. He thought of Leo's backpack on their couch. He thought of the rent overdue notice. He thought of Nina's texts like needles. He thought of the napkin on the counter next to the black card. He thought of pride and how useless it would be if a judge took Leo away. Okay, he said. For 3 months. 3 months, she agreed. And I'm not your bodyguard, he added. She almost smiled. No, you're the one person in the car who doesn't need me. He signed the paper the assistant slid over. It wasn't one of those endless contracts. It said exactly what she had said. Good luck, she told him at the elevator. With court. With being dragged into my mess, she said, a flicker of something real finally showing. I didn't want that for you, he glanced back. Lady, it was already a mess. Good, she said, then I won't feel guilty when I use it. She stepped into her day. He stepped into the elevator. At the courthouse, Nina wore a blazer that said together and eyes that said fight. Her lawyer was sleek. He handed Marco a printout. Is this you? The lawyer asked softly like a friend. It was an 11-second clip of Marco pushing Trent's arm down and Trent stumbling. Marco didn't answer. He didn't look at Nina. He looked at the judge who came in with a stack of files and an overworked expression. The hearing moved fast. Nina's lawyer said phrases that sounded neat. Online altercation, aggressive tendencies, concerns about safety. Nina dabbed at her eye with a tissue she didn't need. Marco spoke when asked. He said the boy had a bed. He said the boy had pancakes on Sundays and a tooth under his pillow. He didn't mention the nights he lay awake. He didn't mention the calluses. He mentioned the bus schedule and the school dropout class for parents he went to on Wednesdays. He kept his words clean and short. Then the door opened at the back. People turned because people always did when someone moved in a courtroom. Sloane stood there, not with a lawyer, just with herself. She waited until the judge saw her. Miss Vale, the judge said, and her tone changed like the air conditioner had kicked on. This is a closed. I apologize, Sloane said. I'm here because my name is in these filings. It's being used as a tool to question Mr. Ray's stability. My presence is to correct that. Nina's lawyer tried to object. The judge held up a hand. 5 minutes, she said. No grandstanding, Sloane nodded. Trent Pike accosted me in a coffee shop. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't play to the room. Mr. Ray's de-escalated the situation with minimal force. He protected his child and a stranger. The only screaming came from a video caption. Trent has had his press privileges revoked at our events due to harassment. We have a history of complaints. She slid a folder forward. I'd like this on record, and I'd like it known that if Mr. Ray's son is used as a pawn by a man like Trent, I will make that my business. The judge didn't glance at the folder. She looked at Marco. Mr. Ray's, are you employed? Yes, Your Honor. By whom? He hesitated. Vale. Nina whispered something like a curse under her breath. Her lawyer hid his surprise and didn't do it well. Sloane's face didn't flicker. The judge chewed on that for a second, then she nodded once. We're not changing custody today, she said. We are ordering a follow-up in 60 days. I want parenting classes for both parties. I want a third-party visitation supervisor for the next 2 weeks to make sure the schedule holds. She looked at Nina. Weaponizing a video isn't parenting. The gavel didn't slam. It just tapped. People stood. Sloane slid out as quietly as she'd entered. She didn't wait for a thank you. Marco caught up with her in the hallway anyway. You didn't have to. I did, she said. I won't let Trent set your life on fire to light mine. Then she paused. I meant what I said about using my mess. If we're tied publicly now, I'll handle the fallout. He didn't ask what that meant. He suspected he would find out. He did, right away. The first day he drove, someone took a photo from a cab window. Sloane in the back. Marco at the wheel. A headline painted over the top of them like graffiti. Billionaire Beauty's new mystery man plays driver. He frowned at it at a red light. He stopped looking at red lights and started looking at mirrors. He kept the route clean and the car quieter than quiet. Do you read those? Sloane asked on day 3. I read the map, he said. Good, she said. The map's honest. He picked her up in the mornings. He waited while she took meetings where millions moved in an hour. He watched her, not the money. He watched how she thanked the receptionist. He watched how she ate fries in the backseat of the car like a teenager and then hid the ketchup stain on her sleeve from the board. He watched how she rested her head against the window on the ride home like her skull weighed too much to hold up. He dropped Leo at school and made it to the shop for half the day. His boss grumbled, then admitted the tips had doubled because a Vale story had attached to the business like a magnet. Don't get used to it, the boss said, faux sour, but also get used to it. On a Thursday, Sloane asked if they could take a detour. Where to? A school, she said. He pulled up to a brick building with a cracked sign. Westside Elementary, Leo's school. She looked at him. May I meet your son? He thought about it longer than she expected him to. Yes, he said carefully, but if Trent... He's banned from my events, she said. He can't ban himself from a public sidewalk, but he hasn't been near here. I asked the principal to call if cameras appeared. You asked the principal. Money helps, she said, but respect goes further. Leo came out with his backpack bouncing and a grin that cracked his entire face open. He saw the car and then saw who was in it and stopped like someone had pressed a pause button. She's from the building, he whispered. Hi, Leo, Sloane said, stepping out and crouching to be eye level. Thank you for letting me borrow your dad this week. Leo looked at Marco. Marco nodded. You're welcome, Leo said, pronouncing it like the word mattered. Sloane handed him a small box. Can I trade you? Your dad drives me. I brought you something from my world. Leo opened it. Inside, a tiny robot kit, not plastic, real parts, curated if you knew what to look for. Leo breathed in. For me, Sloane nodded. If you drift toward engineering, I'll need you in 10 years. Leo's eyes got even bigger. I'll be 16. I'll wait, she said. That night, Marco found a stapled packet in Leo's backpack. Robotics Club, reinstated with grant from the Vale Foundation. He stood in his kitchen and looked at the napkin on the counter. He almost picked it up. He put his hand on the back of a chair and let it ground him. The next week hit back. Hard. Trent posted a new video. It wasn't coffee this time. It was a cobbled mask of images. Marco laughing with Leo at a park. Marco at the wheel of the black car. Sloane's profile caught through the glass. A voiceover mushed together rumor and malice. Who is he? Jail records. Bar fights. Domestic. Marco stopped the video before it finished. His hands shook then. Not because of fear. Because of rage he hadn't had to manage in years. He didn't have a record. He had a night. A night 7 years ago in an apartment where he dragged a drunk neighbor off a girl fresh out of high school and shoved him into a wall until the cops came. He had a charge that hadn't stuck because the girl had testified and the neighbor had slurred. He had the scar on his elbow from where the neighbor had swung a bottle. Someone had pulled the arrest, blurred his name, and let the implication sit like poison. He called Sloane. Don't watch it, she said. Too late. I'll call my lawyer. He hung up and found Leo in the doorway. What's wrong? Nothing, he lied. Leo looked at him the way kids did when they knew what adults didn't want to say. Is it the mean guy from the coffee? Marco opened his mouth, closed it. Yes, but we're okay. Leo nodded like he believed him because he chose to, not because he had proof. Sloane didn't try to fix with money. She called at midnight. Play chess, she said. What? That's what he's doing, she said. He wants you to react and give him the next move, so he can do another headline. Don't let me. Let you what? Be the war he can't win. The next day, she fired a board member. Victor Nash had been a shadow in the building since Marco's first morning. Quiet, clever. He had a way of standing like he owned the corner of the room he was in. He also had a way of leaking exactly the story that would stir donors. She called him into the conference room. Marco waited in the hall. The frosted glass didn't hide the shape of Sloane's posture. It was a weapon of its own. You told him where to look, she said. Victor didn't bother denying it. You hired a liability, he said. You're sleeping with? No, she said with such flat finality that it killed the insinuation. I hired a driver. You hired a fire and tossed it at a father. You will pack your desk. If I talk, you've been talking, she said. You will pack your desk faster. He left. He smiled at Marco on the way out, a thin little cut of a thing. Watch your back, hero, he murmured. Marco followed him with his eyes and then made a decision. I'm quitting, he told Sloane in the elevator. Her head snapped slightly. It was the first time he had surprised her. No, you're not, she said. I'm tying you to my fight. He'll use me. He already did, she said. And firing you doesn't unaim him. It just leaves you standing there without a shield. I don't want you to be my shield. You're not picking this, she said, finally losing her even tone. You picked stepping between a stranger and a man. This is the consequence for me too. The doors opened, cameras flashed. The universe had decided subtlety was dead. She reached for his hand. She didn't hold it. She just moved close enough that if anyone looked, it could be read as scandal or solidarity. That was her gamble. He didn't step away. That night the garage windows exploded, literally. Brick through glass, tires slashed, paint sprayed ugly words that did their job by existing. Leo was asleep on the office couch. He woke to the crash. He cried out, that sound Marco would remember as long as he had ears. Marco ran. He found Leo tangled in blanket and fear. He scooped him up. Someone laughed outside and ran. Marco didn't chase. He held his son and counted breaths until they synced. The cops asked questions that assumed random teenagers. The boss swore and spat and texted insurance. Sloane came to the shop in sneakers and no makeup. She stood in the parking lot with the cops and didn't try to take over. She walked inside and stepped around glass and put a hand on Leo's head. Leo leaned into it like he'd known her forever and didn't understand a world where someone would throw a brick where a kid was sleeping. "Stay with me tonight," she said. Marco wanted to say no. His jaw flexed. His pride marched out and looked around the front yard and saw the tire tracks and went back inside. "Okay," he said. Her building had a private elevator. Her apartment had a bowling alley of a kitchen and a couch that swallowed smaller furniture when it sat too close. She threw blankets like a camp counselor. Leo fell asleep under a mountainous throw in 10 minutes. Marco stood by the window with the city burning cool away from glass. "If I keep working for you," he said without turning, "I'll lose him. He'll be safer if I stand next to you than if I back away," she said behind him. "He'll be safer if you have 3 different lawyers on speed dial when Trent posts again. He'll be safer if I spend my money making sure a man like Victor can't buy a Judge coffee." "That last part is unfair," he said dully. "So is this entire week," she said. Then, softer, "If you want me to step back because you don't want me, say that. If you want me to step back because you're scared, then admit it and we'll figure out a brave way to be cautious together." He turned. Her face had a line near her mouth that didn't seem permanent. The word wanted hovered between them like a fragile glass, something they could break or keep. "I want my son safe," he said. "And I want you," she said, the only time she would say a sentence like that in a hallway with a kid sleeping in the next room. "Not your name, not your sudden fame, you." He looked at the floor to steady himself and then back up. "Tomorrow," he said. "We can decide tomorrow." Tomorrow decided for them. An email hit his inbox at 9. Anonymous tip. Link. He didn't click. He walked to Sloane's office instead and opened the door without knocking and found her watching a video that had been live exactly long enough to trend. Victor, in a restaurant, talking to Trent, microphone on the table like a center candle. "She thinks the driver's a charity case," Victor said. "She's always been blind to men with good arms and hungry eyes." "He's got a kid," Trent said. "The internet likes kids." "Use the kid then," Victor said, casual like he was ordering coffee. "Put him in thumbnails, make him a question." Sloane paused the video. She didn't look at Marco. Her eyes were fixed on the frozen image of Victor's teeth. "Who leaked this?" Marco asked. "Victor's assistant," she said. "He thought I should see it before it hit me, or maybe he likes the taste of revenge." "I don't know, it doesn't matter." "What are you going to do?" "Send it to every investor," she said. "Then take a meeting, then testify." "Testify where?" "In any room that needs it," she said, "including your next hearing." He wanted to hug her. He wanted to keep the world from seeing either of them needing anything. He wanted to pick one. He picked work. The next 60 days were a long haul. He drove. He kept quiet. He watched Sloane hold a microphone in front of a camera and talk about privacy and power, and how using a child as a prop made a man unfit for leadership, no matter how good his investor deck was. He watched Leo build a robot that toddled 6 inches and fell. He watched his son stand up in a cafeteria and show the robot to a line of kids and teachers, and a man with a camera who put the lens down and clapped without filming. He watched Nina watch him put Leo's jacket on in a parking lot. Her face softened. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. "You didn't want to know," he said. She nodded once and didn't argue. The second hearing was quieter. Fewer eyes. Sloane sat in the back, hair down this time, like she had finally chosen to be a person over a symbol. The judge asked the questions she had asked already, then she asked new ones. "Do you have a plan," she asked Marco, "for when the internet swings back?" "Yes," he said. "Drive, cook, close the blinds, read the book Leo has to read, sleep when he sleeps, get up when he gets up. Ignore men who think seeing their names in print makes them real." The judge didn't smile, not exactly, but the corners of her mouth thought about it. "Mr. Reyes," she said. "Miss Alvarez?" "Nina," he corrected gently. "Nina," the judge said. "We're keeping the current arrangement. We're removing the supervisor. We're putting in a review in 6 months if needed. Otherwise, stop bringing the internet to this court unless someone breaks a law. The gavel tapped. That soft sound again. They stepped out into a hallway that smelled like old coffee and waxed floors. Sloane waited near the elevators. She didn't move toward them. She waited for him to decide the distance. Leo barreled into her instead. "We won," he said. "We did," she said. Marco looked at the ceiling to keep his voice where it belonged. He looked back at her. "Dinner," he said. "At my place. No cameras. We have plates that don't match." "Perfect," she said. "I hate matching." She came that night in jeans and a sweater, and her watch could have bought the building except she left it on the counter next to the napkin he still hadn't thrown away. They ate pasta that stuck to the pan a little. Leo showed her the robot, which took 4 steps instead of 6, and they both cheered like it had crossed a finish line. On the balcony, with the city street below and the sound of a siren in the distance not aimed at them, Marco leaned on the railing. Sloane stood beside him. "You know Trent will try again," she said. "He can," Marco said. "He won't change how we set the table." "How are we setting it?" she asked. He looked over at her. She met his eyes without flinching. "Seat for 3, he said. "And extras if people come by because they will," she nodded. "I can bring more chairs." "I figured," he said. Down on the street, a kid on a skateboard pushed off and flew like gravity was a rumor. Upstairs, Leo created a new maze for the robot. Inside 2 rooms and a life, plates dried in a rack someone bought at a discount store. Sloane reached over and took Marco's hand. She didn't lace their fingers. She just rested her palm there. He didn't move. They didn't talk about billions. They didn't talk about blogs. They talked about what time school started in the morning and how long eggs take if you scramble them on low. At 2 a.m., a headline floated out into the world and sank. No one clicked. By 9, someone filmed a dog doing something silly and the cycle moved on. Some things didn't. Marco still drove. Sloane still built. Leo took apart the robot and put it back together better. Nina texted videos of Leo at her place without prompting. Victor interviewed somewhere else and said all the things people say when they fall and pretend they jumped. The napkin stayed on the counter even when it got coffee on it, not as a trophy. As a fact, at the coffee shop, the bell on the door never got fixed. It still shrieked when someone shoved too hard, and the barista still flinched for a second before smiling wide. Trent came in one morning and stood at the counter with his shoulders trying to be wider than they were. He ordered black coffee and left a tip like it made him kind. He walked past the table where Marco sat with Leo and Sloane, and he didn't say a word. He kept walking because, for once, silence served him better than a headline. If he'd looked back, he would have seen an ordinary table. A kid with a pencil, a man with tired hands, a woman with a plain watch and a pile of secrets she was learning how not to carry alone. Nobody owed anyone a conversation anymore. There was one anyway. "Want to split the muffin?" Sloane asked. "Only if Leo wants the top," Marco said. Leo did. Obviously. The muffin broke unevenly. That was fine. No one at the table minded.